Heating oil, that is at the moment as far as the government has gone. As I said just now, though, it's comments from Donald Trump that keep throwing off the Prime Minister, effectively. You know, he is trying to reassure people that this situation is in hand. The line from the government is that supplies of energy, for example, are still absolutely fine. But these repeated interventions from President Trump keep calling into question the partnership that we have. And of course, while the government is trying to maintain a handle of this situation, it's another reminder that the conflict in Iran is out of our control, effectively. And so the government is, trying to look like it's got everything in order. Ultimately, it's very much in the hands of Donald Trump and his decisions.
Joining us live in Downing Street, Lucy, good to have you with us. Thank you. Let's go through the other developments overnight. Iran's foreign ministers acknowledged receiving messages from the US envoy Steve Witkoff, but maintains they don't constitute direct negotiations. Wall Street Journal reporting the United Arab Emirates is willing to help the US reopen the Strait of Hormuz by force. And President Trump will give an address to the nation overnight, delivering, his press secretary says, an important update on Iran. That will be at 2 a.m. here in the UK. Well, let's bring in Sally Lockwood, who's in Dubai, and talk to us about the departure from the current US foreign policy. There's significant details.
Yeah, it's still very hard to decipher exactly what Donald Trump is going to do here. His messaging has been conflicting. It's been very confusing. But what I think has become clear is that Donald Trump is trying to find a way out of this war. He's looking at high oil prices and low approval ratings at home and perhaps thinking it's just not worth it. The big question is, how is he going to dress this up as some sort of a victory to find an off-ramp here? Yes, the military has been hammered in the last 4 weeks, but they're still managing to hit really key targets around the region and inflict damage. We don't know to what extent their nuclear facilities have been degraded. That's very unclear. Yes, I'm sure they've been further damaged, but we don't have a full picture of that. And no matter how much the US administration tries to say there's been regime change, they've taken out key figures, but the regime has proved resilient and is still very much in place in Iran. So we don't know what's going to happen. I think all eventualities are still on the table. We could potentially see Donald Trump utilise these paratroopers and Marines that he's brought to the region, but we could also see potentially him find an off-ramp, pull out of this war, even without the Strait of Hormuz officially reopened for safe passage, and just leave that for someone else to solve. I think it's too hard to predict this right now. The next couple of weeks are key, and certainly what he will say in that address to the nation, the world will be listening very closely to that. But on the Strait of Hormuz, it's very interesting that the Wall Street Journal today is reporting that the UAE is considering getting involved to reopen the Strait of Hormuz by force. Now, I've put that to my government contacts here today. They wouldn't be drawn directly on the Strait of Hormuz, but they did issue a very tough statement, a very robust statement when it comes to their position. And they said that the international community will not tolerate attacks on our sovereignty or the deliberate targeting of civilians and critical infrastructure, which has happened. 4.5 weeks of war now. Every day the UAE has been targeted. In fact, more missiles and drones have been fired at the UAE than any other country so far in this war, including Israel. And we've seen a real uptick in the last few days. Nearly 50 cruise, ballistic missiles and drones were fired at the UAE yesterday. Now, they haven't ruled out getting involved militarily, and an intelligence source that I spoke to this morning said that there will be a power vacuum if the US pulls out and the Strait of Hormuz hasn't reopened, and that Gulf states will perhaps be considering their options right now, that they will not just take it that Iran is deciding to now impose these very expensive tariffs for commercial shipping to pass safely through the Strait of Hormuz. It's against international law to prohibit safe passage of international shipping, but also, they've got a chokehold not just on the global economy by this effective closure, but on the economies of Gulf states as well. And this intelligence source said, they will not stand for this. So it'll be very interesting to see how the international community responds. But I think what is clear is that if Donald Trump decides to end this war before the Strait of Hormuz is sorted out, while it's still a mess, it will be up to the likes of Gulf states to sort this out. And the consequences for countries like the UAE could last well beyond whatever conclusion to the war that Donald Trump may interpret.
Do you want to study psychology and learn how it shapes people and workplaces?
And Kuwait says its international airport's been hit by a drone attack targeting fuel tanks. Officials say the strike has caused a large fire and damaged fuel storage facilities at the airport. There are no reports of any injuries. And a tanker has been damaged off the coast of Qatar after being hit by a projectile. A British maritime monitoring agency says the incident happened about 30 kilometres north of the capital, Doha. The vessel's hull has been hit above the waterline, causing damage but no environmental impact. All crew members are reported to be safe. Malik Train is following developments across the Gulf region. He's joining us now from Kuwait City. Just bring us up to date, first of all, about this fire at Kuwait Airport.
Well, we know that teams are now responding to that fire, trying to put it out. Earlier, the Kuwaiti Civil Aviation Authority said that the airport was subjected to brazen attacks by drones from Iran and the armed factions it supports. I think that's very interesting, Rob, because this shows that this is a reference to armed groups in Iraq that are affiliated with Iran, that possibly these attacks are now coming from Iraq, a sign that this war is expanding. You know, this isn't the first time that the airport has been attacked. It's actually the 7th since this war started. Just last week, a fuel tank was hit at the Kuwaiti International Airport. It took us rescue teams, emergency response teams, more than 58 hours to put that fire out. Here in Kuwait City right now, it's an extremely windy day, so that could possibly hinder, the efforts to try to put this fire out. But this is an alarming issue that's coming up, civil infrastructure being hit across the Gulf.
Let's talk about the wider picture across the Gulf, because strikes have been happening in other states as well. Just bring us up to speed with what we know about what's been going on.
Well, just in the last hour, Rob, in the UAE, the Fujairah, local authorities in Fujairah say that a Bangladeshi national in a farm was killed due to shrapnel debris from an interception. In Bahrain, we saw numerous alarms being sounded overnight. Their authorities say civil defense teams were extinguishing a fire at a facility belonging to a company. In Qatar, you mentioned a tanker that was hit by an unknown projectile 17 nautical miles from the coast. And in Saudi Arabia, also, they said that they were intercepted drones overnight. So, these attacks on the Gulf keep on coming. They've been relentless since the beginning of this war. We heard yesterday from Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War in the U.S., saying that, they can bomb their way into negotiations. I don't believe anybody here thinks that you can bomb or shoot your way into any peaceful solution. We heard the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Qatar yesterday saying, negotiations, a diplomatic path is the only way to bring long-term stability here across the region.
Malik, thank you very much indeed. Malik Trainer there in Kuwait City.
Okay, we'll keep it with a driving theme and when things don't work out. Out-of-control teenagers taking over streets across the nation now. Those scenes from Los Angeles, just a glimpse of what cities are dealing with, and it's not just L.A. Right now, city council members in Washington, D.C. are preparing to vote on extending the emergency youth curfew meant to curb these wild events. You're watching Outnumbered. I'm Harris Faulkner, here with my co-host Emily Campagno. Joining us today, Molly Line, Fox News correspondent, Lisa Booth, Fox News political analyst, and with us for the first time, Captain Barry Butch Wilmore, former NASA astronaut and author of Stuck in Space, as astronauts hope through the unexpected. Amazing. Okay, I can't go on with any stories without touching with you. First of all, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me. Thank you. I mean, this is pretty surreal for me. I tied in from space one day. I got my topics were done, or my tasks were done, and I tied into the feed. Just turned on my iPad, and Fox News popped up. Outnumbered was on.
You can watch us from space?
She was talking about me. The moment it popped up, Emily was talking.
Emily, that's a big microphone.
I know, very big.
No pressure, my friend.
Now, I'm in the center of the couch. This is wild.
Okay, but hopefully it doesn't feel as stuck as you did up there.
No, not at all.
Well, God bless you and welcome home. I bet you can't hear that enough.
Oh, well, no, Earth is a good place to be.
We're fans. All right. Well, you are outnumbered.
I am indeed.
But not outdone.
No, let's go.
Okay, let's get started. Many cities have turned to curfews and other restrictions to try to discourage teenagers, but the trend is now spreading. In the last few months, police in 11 cities have responded to takeovers, some of which have turned violent. Many of them events are organized on social media, so they're getting bigger as more people respond. Like this one. Let's take a look. It turned a Wisconsin mall into a madhouse. Videos show hundreds of masked spring breakers invading stores and starting fights. And at least 13 people were arrested in that one. Law enforcement officials are warning viral videos of these events are breeding copycats now. And police departments say they are overwhelmed as a small gathering can devolve into chaos very quickly. Lisa, what's your thought?
Well, I blame Democrats, full stop. I mean, for decades and years now, they have been leading this breakdown of society from all different vantage points, from a policy standpoint to the narrative around policing, also culturally as well. I mean, you look at the policing angle, all the soft on crime stuff that Democrats have pushed, the elimination of cash bail, abolishing the police, and then you get to culturally with welfare, incentivizing single family homes, punishing marriage as well. You look at the breakdown of God, of, mocking God as well, mocking the family unit. And then you look at the narrative around policing. You could go back to Michael Brown, hands up, don't shoot. President Obama pushed that lie. He said it was a breakdown of, the policing and, really blamed the police throughout the era. You look at Kamala Harris, she went and told Jacob Blake in Wisconsin that she was proud of him, a guy who showed up at his own victim's home to re-victimize her and then pulled a knife on police officers. Kamala Harris also encouraged people to fund the Minnesota Bail Fund as well and to bail out some of those rioters in Minnesota. Mayor Johnson said that law enforcement was a sickness. So you can go down all the way down the line and see how they have led to this degradation of society and this breakdown of society. So I blame the Democrats, full stop.
My guest last hour, Kelly Simpson, was
all the way down the line and see how they have led to this degradation of society and this breakdown of society. So I blame the Democrats, full stop.
My guest last
all the way down the line and see how they have led to this degradation of society and this breakdown of society. So I blame the Democrats, full stop.
My guest last hour.